The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
It is right here at Power 102 Digital, Power 102 Digital Monday, a program which is hosted by Karen Nunez to Tesheira. And today we are going to talk pan. Good afternoon, Karen, and how are you?
I am fine, David McIntyre. I'm going to say co-hosted by Karen Tesheira with David McIntyre. I'm really going to have to say you're a co-host. Good afternoon to all listeners on this digital platform. I know we're going wide and far, but of course, anyway, we enjoy having you. And this is carnival time and carnival season. So we are going to be focusing, as we said last week, we're going to take the focus on today, carnival and all its various permutations. And today, well, last week we looked at the masquerade component. And today we're going to be looking more at the pan side of steel band of carnival, because without that, regardless of some people may say to be restricted to to only to the competition, but nevertheless it's a critical and a very important part of our festival. Certainly yesterday with semi-finals, I live near the Savannah, so I saw the crowds. And if that's any indication that things are the carnival and steel band is alive and well. And joining us this afternoon, when I say us, I didn't say I mean us, meaning David and I, because David, is a big part of NCC, and we all know that David is a big part of the National Carnival Commission and is very involved as a commentator, bringing it to you live, especially back in the days when we did not have, he reminded me the days that he'd have to talk about a band at a time when there was no television. So his descriptive abilities have got to be some of the best. So joining us, David and I this afternoon, or David and I this afternoon is none other than Keith Simpson. Now, if you want to know Culture Vulture, I mean, he could have come on any topic on Carnival, but he's on here specifically with Pan, and thanks to David's assistance, I was able to get him on the show. I hope he's waiting in the background.
He's having a little technical problem, so
I had to,
Oh.
you had to send it again to me, the first one. It's kept saying error, so I don't know if he's having that problem.
Okay.
But while we wait for that to be sorted out, he gave me a little background, and it's going to be very interactive, very relaxed sort of session this afternoon. I think we may have time to look at the whole issue with the Paria Commission inquiry, but if we don't, and we'll leave it for another day.
Yeah.
But today we're looking at our something is singular to Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody else. Okay, so the French want to play Carnival, but I had a discussion last week and I told you, I don't know if they could say that with their masquerade balls, but nevertheless, they can't say that about the pan. That is for sure. So he says, gives a little background. He went to Fatima. Okay, Fatima's all right school. Do I sound like a person whose family went St. Mary's? Yes, that's correct. But Fatima is a good school. In fact, he was inducted into the College Hall of Achievers. He was a past president of Fatima Old Boys Association. So he's a man who's always been involved at a very, what shall I say, at a very managerial or leadership position. But his days of involvement with steel band in particular started very early. Although he was born in Sangre Grande, they moved about 5 years later into St. James. So he's very familiar with both Jose and, of course, our carnival. He said across the road from him, where they lived in St. James, as a young boy, was SO Tripoli. And then around the road, around the corner, was Nota Steel Orchestra. And then there was St. James Crossroads and Symphonettes, Crossfire Symphonettes and Sun Valley and Blue Stars. Anyway, he started playing pan in 1969 and is a foundation member of Nestle's Ambassadors in 1970, Third World and Starlift. But I will have a little thing about Starlift because my deceased husband, Russell Tesheira, played with Starlift. I didn't know him then, but he reminded me every now and again that they did win I think once. Okay. I think it was once. They won a Panorama finals, dressed up in a spaceman type of outfit that had the crowd going wild. Anyway, he's a supporter of the Invaders. He's manager of the St. James Tripolian since 1995, manager of Atassa Group, and has been involved with Pan Trinbago, served on its Northern Region executive. He elected to the executive of Pan Trinbago in 2009 until 2012 and was rejoined in 2018, and the two met in September. So you understand who we have here? He calls himself, is how he describes himself. He's also the director of the board of Credo Foundation of Justice, but a man of many parts. But he describes himself as, I'm an amateur archivist, archiving anything pan, mass, calypso, local content, collect books on these topics. And just in case you want to join the band, because it's still playing Sailor Band, Sailor Mass, he playing Fancy Sailor Mass still with his band, Belmont Exotic Fancy Sailors, the best, BESS. He's an executive member. I don't know if it's too late for you to join, but there we are.
I'm going to try to link up with him via the phone because he seems to be having problems. So let me just take time or two.
We're very excited to have him on this afternoon. We had a talk before he came out, before this show started. And he said, okay, save it for the show. Save it for the show.
Yeah. Let me see if I get them here.
Yeah, so, but while we wait, just by way of introduction to the topic, last week we really did focus on the masquerade component. We did do that. And in focusing on the masquerade component, which leads us to this week's discussion, which is really on Pan. So we're going to be looking at the origins of Pan. There are two schools of thought. Who was the inventor, originator of Pan? Where did Pan come from? We know it's the Tambu Bambu. And but we talk a little bit about that. Then the Bajon days of Pan, no question about that. You just play that for us. You just played us the calypso, so we know it had its days.
Yes.
And the transition, and what were the reasons that you've seen the transition? There are several reasons. One of which Keith, he said, I'll call him Keith, I call me Karen. One of the reasons where we got the reasons for the transition from that reputation of being a Bajon band, of those who are disenfranchised, dispossessed, and so on, to a more respectable reputation that it does enjoy today. And I think we're going to talk a little bit, of course, of a little bit about Panorama itself, the origins of Panorama, what role Pan Trinbago has played, and whether Pan is a dying cultural input into Carnival itself, in the way that it was when it started being part of. I mean, you couldn't be in a Juve band without a steel band. Even I know that. You play going on the road on Juve, and you're going at that time. It was Shell Invaders. That's how I remember it anyhow. So in the age too. But Juve and also all the sailor bands played with a pan side. But what has happened now? We'll talk about that. And the transition, is it a transition or is it a diminution, or, has the pan...
Hello?
Yes, yes, Mr. Simpson. Karen, we have Mr. Simpson on the line because
he's calling me Karen because I'm calling him Keith.
Yes, we have him live on the phone here. We have a little problem.
Thank you. So I told Keith that, I am going to rely on him. I gave them your bio, and so I don't know if you heard it because you having a difficulty getting on, but you heard the beginning, right? Good. And so everybody knows that you are a culture vulture, and your involvement in Pan is no joke. No joke. From a young boy, you were surrounded by Pan, involved in Pan, so we couldn't be happier.
Grow up in Pan.
Grow up in Pan, for sure. So, we always try on this show to take a little different thing, and I've asked David to please contribute because he is a Pan man. You do that.
I love of the pan.
More than a
I love
man.
fun. I love fun.
Yeah, me
From
too.
a little boy.
There you know.
From a
And
little
that's,
boy. You see, my grandmother would come down from Granby,
yeah.
and she would come down Carnival time, and then she wanted to go Juve and thing. So she would carry me as a little boy from a 3-year-old. I see in Mass, and here
Right.
in Pan. We were living in San Juan. Then we came to live in Mommy and Daddy bought a place in 1956 in
St. James.
Sunland Street, opposite the Tripoli. And we speak pan there, they're practicing when Juve morning, when they're getting ready to go on the road Monday and Tuesday. And then when we moved from there, we went to Patna Street and then round the corner from North Star Steel Orchestra. And that's plenty bands in St. James. You know, you had North Stars, Sun Valley, Crossroad, Corsair, Symphonette, Tripoli, Stanek. That's plenty bands, Ambassadors and Tripolians came. You had Fiery, you had Blue Stars. You know?
Yeah.
Why is that, do you think? So much concentration in St. James as opposed to Port of Spain. I mean, that's a lot of bands. Because St. James is not a big area.
St. James had plenty bands. Woodbrook would have had. They would have had Salifs and so.
Yeah.
They would have had Invaders.
Yeah.
Right? And they had other little smaller bands. Newton had, of course, they had Silver Stars. Who were there for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's an incident, something that happened to Silver Stars, I could quickly tell you.
Yes, of course. We want you to share with us.
In 1953, a few of the guys were practicing in a house in Woodbrook. And maybe a little late, 29 or sometime so. And the neighbor called the police, and the police come and arrested the 4 young boys. Right? Get them down. So the parents and them. Well, the thing is, somebody had said
Why? Why they arrested them? For what?
If it was somewhere else, like Ramadil or so, maybe the people would not have a phone to call. Or him to have a phone to get a complaint.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, they would complain. Eventually, the parents will have had a little money and they take an attorney and they went to court and they won. And the magistrate said steel band could practice up to 10 o'clock. So that rule came in there. But
I saw that.
they each got $150 and they went and buy a bicycle. I remember working with one of the guys, a guy called Peter Pongsing, and he was in charge of British Airways here at the airport where I had worked. So it was a story. I really think that happened, and then bands could have legally practiced up to 10. And then there was a matter, I think, with phase 2, and the judge ruled that they could practice, but not after 12 o'clock.
Yes, because it is a kind of I mean, the reality is when they're practicing the same thing over and over and over again. So if you're not in part of the band and you have to be hearing this continuous thing, it is a bit of a difficult.
Practice makes perfect too, because
and that's what you were saying if you're in the band. But if you're not in the band and your neighbor,
maybe yes. But only once a year anyhow.
Yeah, but actually, what I wanted to start with, Keith, because as I was saying, I always try to use the opportunity, even whatever the topic is, to give some background. So when you talked about how these young men were arrested, it brought me back to the Canbrule riots of 1881, and that really is heralded the beginning of the ban on percussion instruments, and then the birth of pan. But I just wanted to say what I didn't know. I knew, and I don't know if you know this, but just for the viewers or the listeners, of Canbrule, obviously, as Canbrule, it literally is like a patois of the burning of the cane, which would happen when the harvesting period.
Brule means burnt, and Canbrule, burnt cane. Because everybody said to burn the cane to take out the pick and all kind of thing on it, from what I understand.
Right, but in 1881, because the slavery had been abolished in 1834, they had the riots of the Canbrule riots of 1881. And that is when they passed the laws in 1883 that banned percussion instruments in particular the drum. But what I was
Yeah.
learned just now before I came on, the wonderful thing about the internet, of course, is that what really led to the riots, with many people died. There was a riot, and there was a big, you know,
Captain Baker
fighting
was the
with
man.
the police. The police was
Captain
because
Baker.
what's that?
Captain Baker. I think that was it.
But you give the story. You give the story. Why they what the Canmule meant. Why was there that it was a form of
Well,
rebellion and protest, really?
it has rebellion because remember these were slaves, eh? They were slaves. They were working on the estate, right? Cane. They were before the indentured labor scheme was Africans who was working the cane, right? They were the ones who had that alive, the industry, the cane. And obviously they were not treated properly. They were not. So obviously, just like in 1884, I don't know, we had the Hussein, so a lot of people were killed because they tried to stop the people from building the Hussein. And they sent Barbados a boat called the HMS Dido. And they came with soldiers and they lined up in the cane thing and killed plenty Indian people, East
Oh
Indian.
my God, I never knew that.
Yes, that is in Cook down in San Fernando. And they never think it. And Jack always is in around October. But you see, there was always opposition to the mass. There was opposition to the drum. There was opposition to the pan. Because
I want to before we move on, I just want to get that story about the Kanbuli rights that led to the Tambu Bamboo and the reason, main thing that was with the opposition, because slavery was abolished in 1834 and the riots happened in 1881, so they were no longer slaves. But what
but
we were
how
not
was it
slaves. But what they were doing was reenacting what used to happen during slavery days. They were forced processions from different plantations to go into the plantations to burn in order to eat the harvesting easy. So it was a forced procession.
Yeah.
So when they were doing the canboulé processions with their with all the tambu
things like that,
right? So, and the drums, and using the drums, the whites and the British colonial government got very scared because the drums were also used as a means of communication.
Right.
So, right. And so the Canboulay was really riots was sparked because it was the now freed slaves reenacting, but in a joyful manner, I suppose, dancing and so on, the forced procession during the days of slavery when they were made to go into the cane fields to burn the cane. And what scared the colonial government more than anything else was those drums, because they knew that the drums were used and could be used as a form of communication with each other, and you would not know what they were saying. And that is what led to that riot. And that is what led in 1883 to the legislation banning all percussion instruments, which of course included the drum. That's the one they were most scared of. The one they were most scared of was the drum, because not only cymbals are percussion, but tambourines are percussion. But what they were, I don't think that tambourines in that, I don't know. But the point is that
they were scared of drums and the little rhythm and whatever they had to make the noise. But that I will just continue and say that banning of drums remained on our statute up to the 1980s or so. It remained there. It was illegal to play the drum. Yeah, I remember talking about this thing. That was on the statute for a very long time because nobody challenged it. Nobody challenged it. It's something you could, you could probably check and see when that came out, removed from our statute. I spoke to a senior attorney, and he loves span too, and he told me that. And then eventually, sometime early the 80s or so, that was removed. And it's good if you could a bit research also to see when that came out of our statutes.
Yeah, but you know what is saying a lot, Keith? At least we did last week's show, and you know all these characters that came out of, especially the old mass characters. They said Carnival was the art of rebellion. It was, you know, a lot of the characters were based on the oppression that basically African at the time, anyhow, because those were the ones enslaved, expressing their anger and hurt and through these old mass characters. And the can roulette, when I thought it was just reenacting just the burning of the cane and at the same time as Carnival took place, I now understand it was their way of reenacting the anger and the way they were treated during days of slavery. But that led to the Tambu Bambu. You want to tell us about the Tambu Bambu?
Yeah, they were broken for a little while, you know.
Okay. What I was saying is if you could tell us a little bit about what came out of after they banned the percussion instruments in 1883. Coming out of that, we had the Tambu Bambu. So I was asking you if you wanted to explain the Tambu Bambu and how that led to eventually to the steel pan.
Well, we had the African drum, and obviously at that time it was banned, and obviously they used the bamboo to make the rhythm. And out of the Tambu Bambu, then we had people playing drums, some of them, the metal drums, into the Tambu Bambu, and then we had the advent of the steel band in its formative stage where they tune the pan, not concave, but convex. But what happened with the Tambu Bambu now, playing that on them roads, summit pitch, it used to be busting them fellas too and all kind of things. It was a different instrument to play because you're holding this bamboo and you have the fuller, you have the cutter, you have the boom, right? It is in three.
Right.
And then as it went along, you had other instruments. Obviously, people will take things to make rhythm. They use the gin bottle. They use just pan until they started to use the dustbin.
Yes, that's what we addressed.
We had the dustbin band, which eventually morphed into the steel band.
I went to the museum, the Carnival Museum, when it just opened, and I saw what Mr. Intyre and his staff there told me and explained to me that there was what they call a biscuit tin. It was a very big biscuit tin that started the first of the pans, correct?
Yeah. Well, they use the biscuit drum, they use the garbage, people use how to hide the
garbage covers, yes, that's what they said. What I read on that, Keith, was that there were 3 levels. Actually, I have to confess, my brother gave me a lot of education on this. I was quite impressed. My older brother, and I didn't believe him, and I had to go and look it up. I said, "Okay, you're right." So he was telling me that the bamboos would be hollowed out, different lengths, different diameters. So you'd get one would give you a middle note, one would give you a lower note, and one would give you a higher note. They call it the cutter. But they call it the cutter. And then they'd use the bottle and spoon to give you a higher pitch. And in 1930, David Leach, who lived on George Street, had the Tambu Bambu Band. And what he said, that is when it started. He said, because when these guys going on the road now, because they can't, percussion instruments are banned, so they're using the Tambu Bambu and trying to create the different melodies and rhythms and sounds to create the music, and using the bottle and spoon. He's saying that it go down. This is what this man, David Leach, said, because he lived on George Street and he had this Tambu Bambu band. Any piece of scrap metal and the dustbin covers. And then they discovered that what covered it, the dustbin covers gave them better melody and better musical range than the bamboo itself.
Yeah, that's the rhythm. Because the first steel band, well, there's still argument of which is the first steel band, came out of a Tambu Bambu band, which was on Chagway Road where Republic Bank is. This is where it was presented. Alexander Ragtime Band. Now the guy,
Yes.
the leader, his name was Alexander. And then in 1958, you had a movie called Alexander's Ragtime Band. And they took the name. And that's about 1959. And they refer to, and I mean, George Goddard wrote it in his book. Ellie Mann said, as far as you know, the first steel band in his formative years would have been Alexander's Ragtime Band. Because what they used to do, they would have these instruments, and obviously what they were playing was not melody at the time. It's what they call polyrhythm. They just come in and they keep in a rhythm, right? And they used to make little top hats and scissors coat, and they have fake music sheets and so on, and they go into tongue. And then there are different stories as the pan coming in. Some say they had a little fight or something, and somebody pick up a pan and start to beat it. Then there's the story in Tanti Willie Yard in Gonzales, where I remember people like George Waits and so was it George Yates with Desperados. We always would say when you have an argument, pan started in Tanti Willie Yard. It had car there, old car, they take it and the iron and the rhythm came out of it. And then they started to, remember they were playing the pan with their bare hands, or they would wrap up cloth and they would play. Because I have a photo from 1945, I think DJ there, one of them, and the front page of the papers was them fellas with untuned instruments. They were just rhythm, as they would call polyrhythms, right? You just playing a rhythm coming down the line. And one pan, I tried to remember his name, he died, he was in England, and I have an interview with him. And he said, this is how the rhythm and the singing. He said one of the earliest tunes they had was a tune called River Vine Cavalli.
Did you ever hear, and this is what actually came from this Elliot Manett, 1951, going to the Festival of Great Britain where the steel band was officially introduced. But according to what I was told, and I'm asking you, when he decided, once they decided that the metal, because he was a man who was a metal worker, loved metal, loved working with metal.
Yes.
And yet he went from convex to concave, and that made a big difference because I don't know, it said the acoustic properties improved and the surface was a better surface. But and then he had this band called, which went to England in 1951, which you all see the TASPO, All Steel Percussion Orchestra.
That went to the Festival of Britain.
Yes, that's right. So what I'm really asking you is this.
You talk about Ellie Manett.
Yes.
Tony Williams was also there, and he tuned some bands also. But,
right.
You know, he was asked by the guy who was in charge. I think he was from Barbados. Can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
So yes, Ellie Manett would have been given the thing as the first one to sink the pan, right?
Yes.
Because remember at that time, the pan used to be convex. It was 4 little bombs on top there.
Yeah.
Right.
And Elder tell me, he said, well, we used to tune the pan to a tune. The little tune they play with 4 little lines. They had a little they would have these 4 notes there. and a guy called Victor Tutti Wilson, he used to tune the pan to the chorus. Bum, 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 bum.
Right. So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this, Keith, because, it seems that their rival, and maybe David can let us have his own views on it. Because when I was looking up and reading up on Elliot Manett, and he has been accorded he is the one that took the steel drum and from concave to convex, which improved the quality and was able to create out of that 8 notes. And I think the challenge was to get 8 notes. And according to the person who spoke to me, they said the first tune that they played on in public was Mary Had a Little Lamb. because Mary Had a Little Lamb, you had to know all 8 notes to be able to play it. So that was to prove that the steel pan was a musical instrument like a piano or other instruments. I got that from my brother, actually. And I believe him.
When Winston P. Simon played for the governor, he played God Save the
That's
Queen.
what I was going to ask you about.
Mary had a little lamb, and about 3 tunes that played. So Mary Had a Little Lamb, because of the notes, and so was a popular song. That was the old nursery rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
But that is what I was told. But it was popular, and it incorporated all 8 musical notes, so which proved or which established that the pan could be looked at as a musical instrument as you would the piano. But then the argument, which is what I'm asking you, your opinion and David's opinion, I know he has strong opinions on this, I'm sure. You know, when I looked it up, one thing is saying is Elliot Manet because of that same thing, same point that we just made. And he took with him a tuner. This Anthony Williams was his tuner. And not him. I think it was with not him, but Charlu had Anthony Williams as his tuner. But anyhow, the argument is it him or is it Winston Simon? Because he developed the tenor pan. So who is it? I have to leave it to both of you.
Well, let me tell you, the people
Mm-hmm.
in that part, the supporters of Tokyo, have said it was Winston Simon. I got a little thing on WhatsApp with a lady handing over a pan to a gentleman and said, this is a pan that Winston, the first pan that Winston Simon had tuned. I don't know how true it is. If that is so, it will be the holy grail of pan. Because he said that he tuned the first pan, and then people say that he buy it for a shilling or 10 cents from somebody, and to pan they'll have a seed. So you see, the thing is that nothing was.
But what makes it the pan? Because they say the ping pong. They say he made the ping pong steel pan. I worked closely with Anthony Williams, who invented the 4th and 5th soprano. I don't know what I'm saying when I'm saying that, by the way. But he invented the tenor pan. So you and David, tell me who invented the pan? I'm not talking about the tuning. Is there a difference between tuning and inventing?
A lot of people say Winston Simon, right? But Ellie was a young fella, and he is given thing as the first one to sink the pan concave and put the notes. And he's the first person to put rubber on the sticks. Many people say that Winston Simon, because Kitchener sang it in 1975. The song tribute to Winston he won the road march and he won the crown that year. But the thing is that everything we have, unfortunately, is word of mouth. We don't have anything documented, no newspaper clipping. And then the newspapers wasn't really interested, based on who owned the newspaper. They were not interested in the development of pan, but they were interested in even somebody making a jail.
They still are.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
There's nothing. The fact we could say that Winston Simon played for the governor, and he played God Save the King, and he played as Mary in a lamb and something else. That is documented. That is in the newspapers.
But what is the difference? I would like to have David's point of view because tuning and tenor. What is the difference between?
Before we start the tuning thing, you know, as a little fella, I used to run away and go by these Spaniards and thing.
You're serious, David? Yeah, bad boys are just small.
And you know, what I was looking at and I learned by running away in the Spaniard. Now, if they catch you by the Spaniard, licks, you know, serious licks.
Chicago.
But I used to see these guys cutting the drums, heating it up, sinking it, and forever ponging. And these guys operated in Labray. Now down south is where you'd find the oil industry, and it was an easy a way of getting the drums, you know. because
Oil drums.
yes, yes. So there's also an argument that states that
That pan
the
came from
pan
south.
started in South
Well,
because yeah,
I have an interview somewhere with an elderly or something, with an elderly fella from Point Forte,
yeah,
and he is saying that the steel band started in South because they had the access to the
the drums.
Drums.
55-gallon drum.
Yes, yes,
Because it said that early Manet also is the first to tune the 55-gallon drum.
yes,
Because the smaller drums, they used to have chemical drums and things. And,
yeah,
he, in my fact, he used to tune for them boys down in the army.
right.
Because like the Jeep pull up outside the invader's yard and he sat around, he thought they come to hold him. He said, oh no, we wanted to tune some pants first, and then he tuned pants. They had a band, a Navy band.
Hmm.
But isn't there a difference between tuning a pan and inventing a pan? I mean, inventing the pan, that's what I'm trying to get, because
Invention is the pan itself, whether it was a 4-note or 5-note, it was a pan, a steel pan.
Hmm.
and so who
From
would that be then?
from the
That is what formative.
yeah, from the
And it was
concave stage.
convex,
Yeah,
from the convex, which is 4 little bumps,
yes,
to the concave when they found it, and they found that they could have put more notes, and Tony Williams is the one who researched
hmm,
the cycle of fourth and fifth, which goes back to 100 years.
yes,
If anyone Google it and see what the cycle of fourth and fifth is,
hmm, hmm,
they could
So what
clearly
do you
find
say, David? What do you say?
the fourth and fifth is how the notes placed, at the intervals. So you have the Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do. You have C
Mhm.
D F G A B. So the first to the fourth, that's how the notes are placed at the intervals in the scale,
right,
So you have one way you play fourth, and then when you're coming back down, you play the fifth. That is how it is.
right.
So the interval of notes in the scale, that
Yeah.
is what fourth and fifth,
Now,
as it relates to the pan.
as we are talking, the placing of the notes on the pan.
Yes,
Tony Williams had his part to play where that is concerned. I think they call it the spider web pan after a time. Yeah,
he did the spider web pan. He
right.
did the pan, it looked just like a spider web.
Good. And then
He
there
did
were
that.
there were other guys because they were saying down south the guys had a different method of getting the notes onto the pan, and there are different people who claim to have done that too. And as a matter of fact, by extension, there are some people who I know patented notes who live in America. What can you share with us?
So, you could, before the fourth and fifth, there used to be the third and fourth.
Hmm.
And there was no, as it is now, where most of the pans that are tuned is the third and fourth. If you look at the 50s, every band had their own tuner.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about like in St. James,
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no template. I don't think there was any kind of
Blueprint like.
there was any big study,
Mhm.
into the pan. And like maybe in the 50s, I would see how the notes and how many notes we'll have.
Hmm.
And as it went along, we had the pan stunk. And the deeper you sink it,
Hmm.
you get more notes.
Yeah.
You get the octaves,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But
you know what I'm hearing you all saying? Because I am obviously not as knowledgeable, clearly, as you two gentlemen are. But listening to you, somebody invented and somebody originated, invented, and refined, and refining is by and continue to refine. Invented the origin, tambu bambu. Invented it, the beginning of what you call the steel band today, steel drum today, I would say is Manet, who fine-tuned and created the more notes and created the ping pong and all the different notes and so on. Continues, and one of the major players in that would be Winston's Pre-Simon, Tony Williams, and also Desperados. You have the Hammer, the song that Rudolph Charles.
If
he
Rudolph
did a
Cha-
lot of improvements in the instrument, the chroming, and he had the 9 bass. He had he had different inventions. And all these inventions came out of the panorama
Oh.
because the panorama is still the biggest competition that we have in the world, the competition for fans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it started in 63, yes, and it continued. And because of the focus on it, I would say that people invented that they want to have better fans
Mm-hmm.
and they would, you know, look and see how best they could have the best fans, the
Te-
best sounding fans.
Tell me
Because then
something,
it's not,
something that missed me along my journey uh, of gaining knowledge about the pan and thing. After they
mm,
invented the tenor, um, were these guys the same guys that brought in like the double tenor, the seconds, the grande? You know,
no,
who are
there's a guy
responsible for
alive
the expansion
named
of the equipment?
Ernest Ferrer. He's
Hmm.
still alive.
Yeah,
He's 92 years. He's still alive. He is the founder of Dixieland
right. I
with
remember Dixieland.
Tesheira,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I remember I got a document from your alliance was a newspaper that he invented the double second pan, and we have him there with the pans welded to each other.
Yeah.
And he said that many, many years ago.
Hmm.
And, the people look for better songs. They will have the tenor, the high tenor, the low tenor.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the second.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the alto pan.
Guitar pan.
Because the music, the bands had to play music. We had music festivals that started in 52, by 52.
Mm-hmm.
By 62, we had North Stars. And their fans were all different.
Yeah.
Tony Williams was experimenting.
Right.
And he was the first person to put wheels and pan in 1956.
Hmm.
So that he could have, whether that's two-note bass, and he played Puerto Rico Mambo on the road in 1956. It was on the record there. That was the first time they ever recorded pan on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Emily Cook.
Hmm.
And
So what is Rudolph Child? Because now I'm reading, this is, I mean, it's really seems like a competition within a competition. Honestly, for me as an outsider, I'm having been married to a man who is very much involved in pan and very, very much so, as you know. It looks like now Rudolph Giles is saying he's credited with developing. I don't know what is it now. That's not creating. Credited with developing the tenor pan, the master plan, integrated both Laventil. He was credited also trying to integrate the two Laventils, the Hill Laventils and the Success Village Laventil. And they said he had a great love of classical music, Mozart, Beethoven,
yeah,
and that is what Hammer was about. That is Rudder's tune. Where with the man with the hammer gone? Tell me,
yeah.
So
Yeah, but to play classical music, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
You cannot have a band, a steel band, right? But like how you should be a single pan band.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to have your notes, you have to have the bass, whether it's a 4, 5, 6, 9, or 12 bass. So you have different pans. You have the double tenor, which is the alto, you have the double second, which normally they would thumb. Then you have the double guitar, the triple guitar, we have the 4 pan. So it for you to play the advanced classics we have done in 1982, the 1812 Overture, which is one of the longest pieces. In 1966, we had North Stars and City Syncopators fighting with Poets and Peasants. And we had Desperados, all these bands doing some advanced and some big classical pieces. And obviously, I think that they would improve the instrument. Also, the Panama also caused the instrument, to be improvements in the instrument, because the competition got bigger, the first prize got bigger, then it reached $1 million. I wanted to get 2 million, that's 1 million.
Hmm.
And then you have the Boston rights also. So a lot of emphasis has been placed on the panorama. So they want to have the better pan, better tune pan, the better tuners, the better arrangers, and so for the competition. And to have that, you have good fans, very good fans for you to sound good.
Yeah, take us back to the days when these bands were really in full swing, and there were a lot of bands, and carnival times would come, and they say the steel bands were the home for bad boys, bad Johns. That's the
Yes, yes. And we'll go back to the panorama because we must recognize that Ronald J. Williams was chairman of the Carnival Development Committee, and he's credited in 1963 for the panorama. And just what you have just said is the introduction of competition, sponsorship of these bands, and be able to pay arrangers well. Said it then created introduce a more complex introduction and more key modulation, and they say that is where the harmonization became more complex and the rhythms more intricate. So panorama has been credited to a large extent not only to create the competition among the bands, but also with the nuanced, sophisticated development of the band.
Because the standard of music, when you listen to, all right, in 1963, you had Tony Williams, he won the Panorama, and he used chromatic, and he used changed, He was a little bit ahead. I would say 63, 64, 65, but he lost the Cavaliers. But as it went along, you get real music. They don't know voice and chorus and I'll jam on things. Now, you have a lot of young arrangers coming out of UTT, University of Tobago. Those who win in the medium, who come in second in the medium, some of them doing very good in the large band category, some young players. So we have young arrangers, the same players, the young arrangers are doing excellent. But who are musicians? So the music being put on now, well, it always has been a piece of music, right?
Yeah.
That comes from the soul of the arranger, whether it's Bradley, whether it's
Jet Samaru.
Yeah, of course, Jet Samaru. He gave them the first hat trick, 95, 96, 97.
Yes.
And so music, these guys were music, like Bradley, Bertie Marshall. Bertie Marshall did big classic on the road. Let everybody be exalted and things like that. So it was, this thing ended up as music. This is real music, boy. These fellas are playing, when you go music festivals, they are playing some serious kind of selection in the music.
Yeah.
And I want to say one last thing. People go Panama and they sit down and listen to the band and things. But none of them never saw the score sheet that the judges have.
Oh.
The judges and then a man jamming here, jamming there, They talk about reharmonization and this all kind of musical things.
Yeah.
So what you got in there is a piece of music.
Yes.
It's a man come and he beat out. Like when it started, I remember talking to David Flavod and he said, boy, when Invaders went to the first Panama, and he played with them. He said, they may do a big set of things. They do introduction, they do a verse and chorus, they come back to the introduction, they do a jump part, and they go back to the top. But now when you listen to a Panama song, like what I've listened to last night, it's pure unadulterated music.
Yes.
So,
but I wanted to take us.
We're going to move on. We're going to move on, David, to what you were saying. But I just wanted to make the point. This is how we have looked at critical points in the development of the pan, the Tambu Bamboo, the Kambuli riots and the Tambu Bamboo, and then the banning, and then, all of those things, and the persons who even invented or made the pan even more nuanced and more sophisticated. Definitely the introduction of the panorama and the competition and allowing for sponsorship, definitely, according to my research, was really a turning point, like a watershed moment for what we now experience in pan and over the years. What you are talking about, Keith, it really got that lift, that watershed moment when now people, they had to compete and allowed to get sponsorship. And that made a difference, I think, from what I have read, to development of the music that we know as pan. But I think we wanted to move on. David was suggesting we wanted to talk about the Bajon part.
Yes, because it's very
And also
important.
after we talk about the sponsorship, I remember something to mention on that.
Yeah.
But go ahead, mention it if you want to know, and then we go on to the Bajon part because that's an important part.
Oh,
Yeah.
as we talk about sponsorship, I was in the old documents and I was looking at Carnival 72 where we had 81 bands under Panama and a little over 50% were sponsored, right? 72. I remember the first field band I'm playing for Ambassadors in St. James and we practicing. That was in 1971.
Oh, yes, you told me. Yes.
And while I was there,
Yes.
he said, keep. The doc out there. I said, which doc? He said, boy, the doc, boy, Eric. I said, what? He said, you can talk. You go and talk to him. I said, me? I walk outside, sheepishly and thing. I said, Eric Williams, boy, what are you coming here for? And he introduced himself. He had a Mr. Ross Moyu with him. And then there's another, about 4 or 5 of them there came. He introduced himself. He said, I'm Dr. Eric Williams. I said, I know that very well, so very well. He said, I am visiting the steel band and I'm trying to get sponsors to all this. You know, it's that they will fight and things like that. You know, that will always happen. And he took out a clipboard and if you see company name there, he said, Mr. Simpson, you could choose any of these companies to sponsor your band. And I told him, well, I'm so, I know that they were and that's not only Fatima, we get a job on thing. They're working for $150 a month. But I don't know what to do with all that money, but because before that, I was doing another job. I am steam person from the team in the sports department. 4 hours a day, and I was getting $16 a week. So, plenty money.
That's really a lot of money in truth compared, yes.
But I was just 4 hours a day. So, I told them working lessons, and I asked them to if they could help me because we are sponsored, came out and things like that. And he told me they may not be, they're not in a position to sponsor Steel Band. So I told Eric Williams that. He told me, he said, I'm going to call the head of the company who was David also. He called. And the next day I went to it, I was told that we will sponsor your band. That is the power of that.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's a good story, Keith. That is a fantastic story.
I was there 1971. I wasn't 21 yet. It was only January. We were doing a tune called Brownlee by Relator. And that always stuck in my head. And with him coming, with the whole list of companies, Mayfair, Knitting, and all these, any company, choose anyone.
But why do you think he came to you? Why do you think he came to you?
He was going around to the bands.
He was going around to the bands, okay.
Yeah, I think I made the steel band or something. So he went around to all the bands and who were unsponsored. And he realized that if he gets sponsorship, that the bands will be getting money that they could pay a ranger, they could probably pay tuner. And buy instruments and things. And that will keep them kind of quiet. Because when we had the first steel band organization in 1950, they had issues at that time.
Right. So that's why we want to stop and, if you don't mind, Keith, to go back to what David was saying. No, because no. What you're saying about his sponsorship, I mean, that's a fantastic story. And I want to just say that when he went to work the next day, you get plenty credit. Thing one time I say that little boy, he's not even 21, because 21 was the age of majority back in the day, not 18 now, but back in the day it was 21. So you were a little boy, you're not even an adult. And the prime minister.
Boy, now starting the work in there Tuesday. I was in the office up at the highway there, and I was doing they call the milk payroll. Tabulating tabulating when the milk coming with a grade 1, 2, or 3, and you have to put it. Huh? Yeah.
Anyhow, what we wanted to go past on too, because the idea, in fact, when we go on with the discussion and transitioning from the Bajon to what it is today, one of the major elements was sponsorship. But let's talk about the Bajon because I have I'm doing my research. They talk about the role of the Bajon in the development of the steel band movement and the backyard and so on. So you or David can talk about it, and I'll put in my 2 cents after.
Mhm. Well, I too want to learn more about it because I too, as a little boy, my grandfather used to allow me to go out because he taught me to travel. So I came into Port of Spain and I can't remember it was Green Court or somewhere. These two bands, one heading east and one heading west, and it was a big clash. Now, the clash is one thing, but the word on the ground is that steel band started with what they call bajons. And now they are the disciplinarians of the bands because bands now have a very, very, very high degree of discipline when it comes to the panya. The moment you enter the panya now is a whole stringent sort of procedure where discipline is concerned. But tell us, walk us through the reasons for the clashes and stuff.
Yes, and I will add my little 2 cents after that because really very interesting. But go ahead and tell us about the Bajon time and who and why did they have that reputation?
Yeah.
Well, some of the elders told me that the Bajons, yeah, they were bad, but they were protectors.
Yes.
They protected people in the band.
Mm-hmm.
We had reasons that would have one woman and she have two fellas, one in this band, one in that band. And that is of course.
Adam and Eve story or what?
And
Or David and Goliath story or what?
then, and obviously there was jealousy also with bands who would be playing, better music than another band.
Yeah.
And it's a time that I think even in America they had gangs and things like that. We had little gangs, Single Cat and all of them, We had little Bajans around. So you always would have fellas in the band. And also to collect a band fee, I remember in Invaders, I played with them as a young fella. Then a fella called Norman Daway, big, strong fella. And he and the side of them are the one who collected the band fee. And I had no money to pay the band fee, the $2, a dozen, until you see them fellas run down with the duffel bag full.
Yeah.
No, they think, because you had to pay band fee in the band.
Yeah.
$1 Monday and $2 Tuesday.
Yeah.
So yes, there were the battles and the sponsorship that Eric Williams would have encouraged.
Yeah.
And even earlier, because the first Steel Band Association 1950, Sidney Gollop was the first ever president of it. And they too, they had to meet steel bands because in that time, in the 50s, they had a battle. They still had the battles in those days.
Yeah.
I mean, you may recall that Blakey had sung Steel Band Clash.
Yes.
Which supposedly happened in 1950, but then it was the road march in 1954.
Yes.
And the first time it was recorded was the back-to-back steel band called City Sun Valley.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of clash that it have now. Now is with gun.
Yeah.
50 and all of that.
Now tell me something. What would you say that the clashes? Because back in those days, like let's say going across Park Street, let's say a band is coming from the eastern side of Park Street, and one is coming from the western side. That used to create the clashes too, right?
Yeah, because if let me say Casablanca coming, then from before it so go to Blanca coming across Park Street.
Yeah.
And Invaders or somebody going up. One traveling east, one traveling west.
Yeah.
And that was confrontation.
Yes. Especially with the flag men, Yeah.
Now going to say the flag.
Yeah.
Because for you to be the flag,
Yeah, you have to be real bad.
Big role you play in there that support you wherever you go that to follow.
Yes.
I remember in Tripoli, the flag, we didn't have a flag man, we had a flag woman.
Yeah.
Her name was Tuti.
Yeah.
She used to sell fish in the market in St. James, and she wasn't easy.
I would imagine
She
so.
wasn't easy.
I would
She used to sell,
imagine so.
she used to sell, she used to sell, she used to sell fish in the market in St. James.
Yeah.
And all the flag went up, you put there, you
I
know,
would, I would want to cross this. Somehow I feel I would want to cross that door.
Yeah, I didn't know the flag bearers will clear the way.
I,
Really.
you know,
Yeah.
what? Cheesy was flag woman. I
yeah,
wasn't crossing. I was, yes, ma'am.
yeah, she wasn't easy. You had Mayfield as another person. She used to wear flag in the early days of our band, Chipotle, Mayfield.
Yeah.
And I had another one. You had some flag woman, who was able to hold the end.
Yes, to
Because
lead
You
the
know
back.
that. You know, even I know that.
And back in those days
but-
too, the flag had a longer shaft as what we see now.
Oh, okay.
So when that flag coming down all by your ankle and thing, you have to clear the road.
Well, let me just
Yeah,
share with you all some of the research I did. And of course, Keith is going to give his real life experiences, which my own is based on just doing research, which is, that is what I do try to. But actually, it comes from Pan Trimbago. I got it from a Pan Trimbago article. And it was, they said, and the name of the article was, or the title is The Role of the Bajon in the Development of the Steel Band Movement. And that's from Pan Trimbago. They said any steel band man back in the day was mostly unemployed. He was a hustler, he was a gambler, sometimes he was a pimp.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah.
And they lived in the barrack yards.
When that was written, years ago.
Pan Trimbago article, I don't know, I just picked it up and it was a pan. They were trying to give you the background, trying to tell you the Bajon. They were talking about in the back in the days, so they're trying to explain.
Back in the day, because we tried
Back
to
in the days, so it's an article trying to explain to you why the steel band was associated in those days with this Bajon. So I'm just telling you from their article that they said mostly the persons involved were unemployed. They were gamblers. They were the dispossessed. They lived in the barrack yard, and they said they were young men who grew up involved in the warrior spirit of the African ancestors, and street fighting was in their blood, and they inherited that in the barrack yard and its social infrastructure. And as you just said, let me just add this, you just said, most steel band clashes resulted in disputes over women. And there was a machismo culture. Go ahead.
That was one of the reasons why we have it. But as it is, obviously this was written a long time ago, because
yeah,
we
I'm
don't
talking
have
about
to, that was a long time, because what we have now is musical clashes. That is where the steel bands support one another when they have the
yeah, but we do know.
Like that.
But we do know.
Like everything else, they had a different time.
Right, but what we're trying to understand is why it was like that. I mean, it's to just say that it's a Bajon without any reason. They also talked about that time was a time of social and political unrest in the oil fields. There was high inflation, high unemployment, people working for low wages, and as a lot of racial discrimination and a lot of feeling unaccepted. So
we did up to 1970 because yes, a lot of the panmen, and I could witness that fellas and them was just their linemen, But the early 50s, they would see the fellas, they in the panya the whole day long, like like they're working away. You could see them whole day in the panyard. Things were tough, It's not until Eric brought in the special books and for the unemployable, those who came out of jail, and so he tried to cool down what was going on. Yes, but a lot of those pan men in the early days, that is what they invested the time with the pan.
And what
in the dry river,
But Keith, what I'm really trying to say is, is that when condemnation, we have to be very careful about condemnation, right? And I'm saying that what were the circumstances that out of which these clashes, and as you just mentioned in this book by The Dragon Can't Dance by Earl Lovelace, is actually a quotation from it, where he was saying that the steel band tent was their cathedral, and those young men
Yeah.
were priests. They got a they got a certain what do you say not acceptance, beyond acceptance. These were unemployed, dispossessed, so certainly during carnival time, certainly had rank, and it was important to them. And they also said they always had gangs attached to the bands, and so they said that if, according to
Oh,
Earl
yeah,
Lovelace,
yeah. Yeah.
he said if you were from Belmont, you didn't want night to catch you in St. James. But let me just read one thing and then I'll hand back to you, because I am not trying to talk about the band today. Everything has an origin and everything has to develop. And it's not just good enough just to say they're bad boys. You have to understand what created the conditions for that. So in fact, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the old colonial government in 1952 had a FACWA, I don't know how to pronounce the gentleman's name, committee report of 1952. And he did a study of what was causing the violence in the steel band movement, because people now, it reached a point where it wasn't just bottles they were using, it was steel, it was cutlasses, and things were really getting out of hand. They said it came from people complaining about the noise, to the fact of these clashes of the bands, and so on. I just want to read all this and then I'll hand it over to you and David. I'm just reading from the report. He tried to explain, why there was so much violence associated with the steel band movement in the 1950s, the early days, those days. He said the steel band essentially was a creation of, I can't even read my own handwriting, of the masses with their poor housing, overcrowding, unemployment, large families, lack of opportunity for recreation and cultural expression. And there was professional jealousy within the movement, and they became a menace, and they produced battles with weapons of bottles, sticks, knives, cutlasses, and so the public apprehension gave way to fear. So so what I'm saying, in the atmosphere in which coming out of slavery and having banned the Camberley riots and having banned percussion instruments, it always seemed like the history of carnival as a whole is associated with rebellion and oppression. And you can't understand where you are today unless you understand where you were yesterday. And all I'm trying to say is I am not justifying anything at all. I am just saying, obviously, the government of the day was sufficiently concerned, because it was now affecting the middle class and those people who felt it got out of hand, and they identified the conditions that allowed that type of violence and the territoriality and so on with the bands and the gangs of the day, which now we have gangs using guns. In those days, it's a different kettle of fish. But a lot of it was this unemployment and all these reasons and the barrack conditions, and allowed for that type of environment to fester and foster, and also for these same young men to get some rank or get some, some sort of what's the word fit?
Community
Community respect during carnival time. When they played with a band, they got something, the woman would be attracted to them, and so they had ranking then. And so, I'm just trying to explain why it is to a large extent. And I think, David, you had some reasons why you thought there was it. Now we're going to go back to where it transitioned and what it is today. No question. But it's important to understand why it was like that and what caused the transition, because there is a whole article written about social change and acceptance. What created it? What were the factors that moved away, transitioned the band, steel band being associated with bad jobs, and you had to run away. If your parents catch you in a steel band yard, you're in trouble because there's only bad boys inside there, like David said. And David, you had said to me other reasons why, which also allowed or facilitated, if it's the wrong word, these clashes, if you want to talk about it. And you, Keith, both of you. And then
Yeah.
we'll move on to the transition, which is the good part.
Pete, let me hear your version.
Well, one says that if you talk about the 50s, and the pan, it was the young African males, right? And obviously, in that time, there was bias towards those young African males. I remember reading in a book that around Christmas time, steel band playing, and they built a house to house, and they were playing some of the carols in like Joy to the World in Calypso Temple. And that made a big article in the newspapers, how they degrading the Christmas and things like that.
Hmm.
And everything they could have said or done against the pan man, which as you said was the poor black, plenty of them unemployed. And then after we had what they call the white boy bands, like you had Dixieland and you had maybe like Silver Stars, you know. But there was always a bias to those fan men. And they had their own fault because they were fighting with one another. They had a battle in 1950. We had a big battle that was on Frederick Street there by Memorial Park. People lose their hand, they get pickaxe, man with cutlass. You know, they used to have these clashes, yes, among themselves. So when you have class against themselves, the society, especially the middle class, will always find things to say about you. You know,
Yes.
so we may have made our own, but because remember that these guys, they were linemen, a lot of them were linemen, they were gambling, they were down in the dry river and things like that. And then the police would come with the Black Maria, that black van, fell the pan, fell everything in the van, man and pan going down the road. Or that appeared before the court. And you see, one person who has never been given credit, Albert Gomes was also involved.
Yes, I heard so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I read that too. Go ahead. I read that about.
Yeah, Albert Gomes was very much in bringing peace to the Sudan with these riots and things that they had. But nobody hardly ever mentioned it. Well, it was political because you remember in 1966 when the PNM, when I think Albert Gomes was the chief minister or whatever you call it at the time. And he gave pressure and he jumped and he went to England and everything, he never came back. But he had a one, and then the Canon Farquhar also, or one or two other people.
That's what I meant, Farquhar. That was the committee report I was speaking about.
Yeah. He was a canon or something, Canon Farquhar in the Anglican Church.
Okay.
You know.
Was
certain people try to help out the steel bands and so it was for producing the music and then, but they had a fight among themselves.
Yeah, some of the fight too.
Because people are afraid when Renegades coming down, when Desperados coming down, when Casablanca coming down, when Tokyo coming down. Stay clear.
Yeah, Battle Royale could erupt anytime.
You were going to say, David, something that contributed to that
No, the guys who were termed the bad boys or named the bad boys of the bands, they too really defended their turf, the band, the panyard itself. You know, they were defenders of that, and then
they were defenders.
Yeah, and I think that led to a more committed or a bigger way of committing the players to the band, because nowadays we have fellas jumping all over our bands and playing all about. But back in those days, the players of a band were the players of a band.
Right.
Now, did that lead to the one-way routes? Back in those days, bands were clashing. Coming from the east and they're clashing with them who coming from the west. The moment the two flag people clash, battle started.
We're laughing, but not funny in truth. I mean, the root, because you mentioned that to me, the root, lack of a root, clear root.
when the two band class, Mama, if you see class, never me again. So I'm going to see band and
Port
Port
of
What
Spain.
a Spain. I get that.
So
The
you think
route
that
was the bands that are coming from St. James would block out. The only route you had to come up the main road.
yeah
Or the park, you come in front of Green Corner, you drop the bomb and thing, and you're all like, if you understand the thing, you go down St. Vincent Street.
yeah
Because if you're going across Park Street and see Casablanca, Tokyo, problems,
War of the
you know?
gods. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
But you think the lack of a designated route, that's I think what's one of the points that David had mentioned to me that facilitated, for want of a better word, these clashes, that there was no designated routes for the, like how when now with Carnival now, there's a route you have to pass. So if in those days, if you knew there's a route, then wouldn't you have been able to avoid the clashes?
I don't think the route had anything there. If I am a band and I come in, I looking for all over town. I looking for invaders. You want to know where street they go down. Then you could go down the street, cut across, then you're going and you're looking for Tokyo or something like that.
yeah, so you're choosing
You know?
streets. There were never
But
no
it only
particular
had
routes.
to come into town with that one route.
Yeah.
You find Casablanca would be coming down Frederick Street.
Yeah.
You have Renegade, you come down Charlotte and cut across. And then Tokyo will be coming around their area there.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
know what I have a feeling, Keith and David, all of course, I was not around thing, but I have a feeling, there was that, desire to have a clash too. I think, I think in a way, of course, not to become fatal, but I have a feeling that the clashes were welcomed in a way, getting out your, whatever it is, the vexation, the territoriality.
I thought of it in that context. I thought of it as supremacy. Who
Yes.
wanted to prove that they are the top
Yeah,
band?
if they're going to run you out the town.
Yeah.
I mean, we
So,
have
so they had to clash. You're not going to have a carnival. We're not clashing.
Now I'm wondering if that brought up the idea to have one-way routes, because after a time you'd find a carnival were coming around by the Greens and up
Right.
Charlotte Street to the Savannah.
they don't have to circle.
Yes. They never had.
That's true. That's a good
Never
point.
had it. Because if you come in from St. James, right?
Yeah.
The only way you could pass is on the band. They had no kind of Victoria Square,
No.
Adam Smith, and no
No.
band would be going there.
Yeah.
So you're coming up there, up Chagrin Road, and you're going back down Chagrin Road. So you have 5, 6, and 8 bands going down the road.
Yes.
Carnival Monday night or Tuesday night, you must get a band to carry home. You don't have
Yes.
none again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, let me go to the transition. And by the way, just as you gave a little story, when my husband was alive, he was a real steel band man. But I love the art, but he was a real steel band man. So Carnival Monday and Tuesday, I want to see the masqueraders because they were still playing. They really still were playing a mask, not just swimsuits at the time, right? They really were still banned. But he would never tell me. But somehow I would find whatever route he went on, somehow we ended up finding Starlift steel band with their steel band. And that is really what he wanted to do. He wanted to be playing is on Monday and Tuesday. It is steel band, Starlift, or even if it wasn't Starlift, with a steel band, because he played with a few of them well. So I understand, and that was my little experience. I wasn't too happy about that, because I think I'm going all around, all over town. And why are we not looking at the bands? We're not looking at the bands because he's looking.
You're looking at the master playing band.
He looked at his steel band. Anyway,
He was instrumental, I believe, in getting people to. I had the fellas tell me that. Yeah,
Very
when he
much so.
was there, people.
Very much so. Very much so. And in fact, I can share a little bit with you all. He did get, because he went to live in the East, and he got Kiko to sponsor for Zata, and it became a community band, and mostly young people and children. And in fact, I think I told you this story before. Every carnival time, everything, I was just saying, please God, let them not make it into the finals. Please don't let them make it the finals, because I was a carnival widow. I was a pan
Yeah.
widow. So the year that he passed away, they did not do well. But the next year, in honor, in commemoration, and to honor him, I said, our daughter, because we live in the East, very near to the Panyard, and I said, to her, you play with the band, it's left at
Yeah.
least for your father, to honor your father. And do
Yeah.
you know that year they came first?
Hmm.
Very good. Very
Yeah,
good. Very
that's a
good.
little story. So, but
Well,
the
story.
social, huh?
Lovely story.
Yes, she played and she played. I said that at that time she was about 18, so she would drive down.
Yeah.
And it was a safe band. And what they did too, they worked very much with the panting. One of the, not Father Pan,
Yeah.
his brother, who had
Yeah.
Serval, and he and this guy,
Right.
Bunny Alexander. I'm sure you know Bunny
Right.
Alexander. Right.
Right.
They used to do a lot of giving out every month, rice
Yeah.
and all kind of foodstuffs. And
Always
they
give us.
really were
Yeah.
very, very good. So I will honor him for that and the work that they did as a community band, and he was
Yeah.
very much involved. But so that brings me to the
Right.
social change. What were the things that brought about the steel band that we know of today, where we have people of all colors and social stratifications playing with steel bands? It makes no difference, race, color, creed, social strata. A matter of fact, that is no longer an issue at all. And what
Uh,
were the factors that brought about that change? I'll hear from you all, and I
uh,
then
we had the Panama was one, but
yeah,
and then we used to have blockoramas. So the
Mhm.
band, and that helped to take away the enmity and thing with bands. So that you'll find that this band have a blockorama and other bands will come. Unclaim will come from quite a south to play a blockorama in town because they used to have microphone and them doing all them funk tunes and thing.
Mhm.
And bands used to go in each other pan. The Blockorama was good. So this weekend is Desperados. The other weekend is Renegades. They have it in King George,
Mhm.
Pompeii, and things like that.
Mhm.
So that interaction to me kind of cooled down whatever enmity could have had between bands. Because bands would have been exchanging. We don't play for another band. This
Mhm.
band will go in the Panyard and so.
It also brought about the destigmatization of steel band.
Of going into the Panyard.
Yes, yes, yes.
And then we had also, even with the Panya judging.
Mm-hmm.
Look at who going in. Everybody going.
Yeah.
The whole of this year, the whole of Charlotte Street locked down.
Hmm.
You could not pass on Duke Street.
Hmm.
There's thousands of people
Yeah.
who never went in Desperados. They went.
Mm-hmm.
Some of
I
them went
saw
to
it. Yeah, I saw it. Thousands of
look,
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
look, they
that's
go
what
by.
that.
In the early days, they had the name Renegades. They had the name Despas. And them, boy, like Bajon Ban, and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Now the same
You
guys
know?
who were labeled as the bad boys, those who are
Mm,
still remaining, and even
yeah.
it became a sort of legacy that others continued in bringing about a discipline sort of atmosphere and way of personal behavioral patterns and things. When it comes to the panyard, the moment you
It changed.
enter the panyard, discipline
Listen.
maxing out. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, because more young people come in and people who could not have played,
Hmm.
the children playing pan.
Yeah.
They go by Invaders, they go by Desperados, they go in and play by what you call it, Renegades and all these bands, like people,
Hmm.
and and what also has, I think it is in 1975, the schools Panama started.
Oh.
And then what was happening is that obviously the schools did not have fans.
Hmm.
So the schools used to go in the Panyard, All Stars, Desperados, Renegades, Invaders,
Hmm.
right? They were not members of the band, but they will use the bands, allow them to use the bands. And out of that, some of those school children ended up there, ended up in the band. We have a few of them who ended up as arrangers and things like that. And I remember in 75, when St. Francois won the Schools Panama, the first one, Scotiabank took the band to play annual general meeting in Toronto in Canada. It was managed by Steve Winston Gordon, who worked in the bank, and they went on a big trip to Canada. This is something. So we had the children were going into the Panya now.
Yes.
And this is the early 70s, 1975. Because it ain't like now that the school getting a 16-piece instrument. So we still need to beef up that a little bit. And so now the band, kids go on to play the school wrong the area there, go by Desperados, they go by Renegade, they go by All Stars. And some of them have their own junior band.
Yes.
All Stars, Renegade, Desperados, Montclair. All of them have junior bands that take part in the under 21. So you have the school, you have the primary, you have the secondary, and you have the under 21. So
well, let me
have made people in the Panyard intermingling. And I don't use the thing Bajon again. As I used to tell somebody in the past, they used to want to call something Bajon Day. I think that those same people now are looked upon as pioneers.
That's right.
Right. So I just want to, for the purposes of the listeners too, so we know it's no longer like this, but there was a transition. It didn't happen like overnight like that. It didn't go one day. It was so money. It was a progressive movement, and these are the reasons, according to the research that I have done. I think, and you have alluded to some of it already. Definitely, they said acceptance by several influential citizens, including writers, intellectuals, lawyers, musicians, politicians. You have mentioned Albert Gomes, Farquhar, you have mentioned that already. The government's concern expressed in committee reports and the formation of steel band committees, I think they said. Commercial sponsorship was critical for the bands, of course, to be able to afford for the tuners and arrangers. A refinement of the instrument, the playing of semi-classical and classical music, and the open support from the PNM political party. And this is starting from 1946, Trinidad Youth Council and musicians such as Lennox Pear, and just the government's concern. These were the reasons that were given in the article that I read. Sorry, I didn't write it. Not definitely, I did not write it. It was expanded upon as to why today the transition, where you talk about those are bygone days, but there was a transition, and these were the things that assisted in moving away. And of course, the panorama was very important part of that in 1963. All of these factors together broke down the stigma that was associated with pans and people not wanting their children to go there or whoever to go in the panyard. And over time, that is completely not the case anymore, but it did not happen just magically. It happened because it was done to make it happen.
Yeah, sure. And then you may recall that when the PNM won election in 1956, by 1957, Eric Williams felt that the government should have a bigger role in the carnival, and that is when the Carnival Development Committee was formed, the CDC. And the CDC oversee carnival, and then they would have joined up with the National Association of Trinidad and Tobago Steel Band and that. So,
and then we have Pan Trimbago. So tell us a little bit about Pan Trimbago, because I'll let us know, because that had to play a part in what we're talking about today.
Yeah, the Steel Band organization came into being in 1950 with Sydney Gallup. And as we went along, the name was changed. In 1971, the name was changed. The phone, it was changed to Pan Trimbago. And the first president of Pan Trimbago was Roy Augustus, who was a well-known teacher, etc., etc., etc. Right? And we got the Trinity Cross. And then things started to change in the organization as Pan Trimbago. And there were changes as we went along. in 2004, Patrick Arnold had changed the groupings of the pan. We had what we call the pan on the neck or the single pan.
Yeah.
Then he brought the small band category, the medium category, and the large. Because when you had Panama, everybody going.
Yes, all the bands. Yeah, there were no categories at all.
The small band was catching the tail. They can't be desperados and renegades and all stars and renegades. You know, and Skiffle and all these stuff, Montclair and all these bands, and you know.
Yeah. You know, and on that point, I remember Super Blue singing the Unknown Band, referring to tornadoes. Those days it were Dunlop tornadoes. But when they came to Port of Spain,
1981,
yeah, they created a still, but they couldn't win the panorama, like you said.
No. But let me just add to your talking about Pan Trimbago. From my research, it said Pan Trimbago was incorporated by an Act of Parliament, number 5 of 1986, and previously it operated as registered as a union. So there's that actual, you know, putting the kind of legal underpinning to Pan Trimbago by an actual Act of Parliament.
Yeah. And then the NCC is the one that oversees the two interest groups. Pan Trimbago, Tuco and Tobago Carnival Band Leaders Association, TTCBA. And the leaders of each one of those organizations are the ones who serve as commissioners on the NCC. So each one of them, they have a voice in the NCC.
Yeah.
And the NCC is to oversee, according to their thing, to oversee these three interest groups. And
David, what is your... Oh no! I'm just when you finish. I think David has something to do with the NCC. I don't know why. I think so.
No, I just do announcing work. I would like to be part of the body.
Anybody heard that? Anybody heard that?
You see, there are lots of things that I feel, and sometimes it's just visions that come to me where we can improve on the whole presenting of carnival. You know, I see it from a different angle. I've lived it. And I might not be like Mr. Keith Simpson, but I've been around for some reason. Maybe it had to do with me now being a commentator, that I can refer to a lot of the panyards in the early days, the mass camps, you know, when we had these cardboard and galvanized fence where they created mass, where they used to be pounding copper and wire bending and all that. Yeah, but something about the pan, I used to gravitate more to what's going on with the pan, because during my youthful days, I mean, when we come from Labrador to Port of Spain, most of my friends want to fet, but I used to enjoy going by the pan yard and watch them practice and watch how, you know, the discipline when the arranger hit the pan, the kind of discipline will start instantly, you know. So
everybody stand up on time.
Yeah, so I looked at back in the days, you know, from the pan morphed from being the instrument, the musical accompaniment on the road. There was an era where there was only the pan or the steel bands that played for all the mass bands.
And that's what we need to talk about. That's what I was going to, because we have about 12 more minutes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about that and your views on that, Keith and David, on the role of pan today, because I know the role of pan today. You know, it was the brass bands and now it's the DJ trucks. And now you're hardly even on Juve. Used to have, I mean, you used to associate pan definitely with Juve.
Well,
so I want to know what are your views on that?
Well, as I said, as a little boy, I saw mass sounded by pan in St. James and Carnival Day. You could go by the Oval, and you could see Boston bands coming from St. James. You could see Starlift and Invaders coming. You could see Team Leon and George Bailey. You could see all the mass, because there used to have competition in the Oval, you know.
Yes, I remember that
mass
also.
Competition. There used to judge.
Yeah, but the steel bands were the musical accompaniment
That's what we're talking about.
All the mass bands. All
They
the mass
used to
bands.
bring mass. And I remember when playing mass in a steel band some time ago, you had to go with a piece of pasting paper. If they playing Indian mass,
Yeah.
you will paste it out. And I remember I playing and they tell me, well, go by Samaru's and Observatory Street and ask for Chinese. Tell them me playing with in the section
Yeah.
with West Side Symphony.
Yeah.
And you know the cloth in for each section, you have a yellow top and a blue pants. And that's how it used to be. You
Yes.
take it and you chase out the mask.
Yes.
Another thing we have to talk about too is the importance of the t-shirt. Because everybody wants a t-shirt to identify with the band.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember in the 60s and thing and 70s, before he had silk screen, they had to cut out these stencils and they take a brush and they cut it short, and they had 3 different brushes with 3 different colors.
Yes.
And you stamp out and you put your print.
Yes.
And the print would have related to some calypso.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So I want the and it is now people want the t-shirt. I mean, a t-shirt now is
But Keith, what I want you to focus on now, because you know what troubles me. We talk about pan, how fantastic the pan is, how the great progress the pan has made from the early days to today. And definitely you see it in the schools and so on. But it has almost disappeared from the streets as our musical instrument.
I had a DVD of Carnival in 1959. And you see people playing mass. And the music was the steel band, and then you had the brass around the neck. They wanted to unchuck that.
Yeah.
Right? But the steel band used the rule. They were playing big mass, they play Indian, they play fancy sailor, they play white sailor, they play all these things. And they get support from them. But then the DJ came on the scene. Right? And the DJ music is so loud. They would blast the post band out there.
Well, added to that too, Mr. Simpson, what was happening now? Now, back in the days when the steel bands were the musical accompaniment for these mass bands, the masqueraders were just like in a few hundred. A few hundred would have been considered a big band, you know, so they would have a steel band and everybody chip into the steel band. But when mass bands started, when people started gravitating by the thousands to the brass, to the mass bands, it seems as though the volume that was needed from the steel band was not appropriate. And then Highlanders themselves, they started to amplify the pans.
They tried to amplify.
Yeah.
But yes, but you know something? I remember playing mass with Stalin, right?
Yeah.
And I was telling my friend Clark, I know he listened because he played 40-something Panama with Stalin. And I hear the music, yes, you know, all I hear the bass boom, 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 boom.
Or the iron and thing.
I hear that rhythm.
Yeah.
Stalin on a Carnival Monday had 4,000 people when they play Shindig.
Right.
I see Stalin used to be big, all the young people playing with Stalin.
Yeah, that is true.
All stars. You used to see the Sailor Band coming up in the 50s, and you only see Sailor by the hundreds. And then you heard the Steel Band. They never used to be by the Steel Band.
No.
It is syncopators. In 1963, Silver Stars on Band of the Year was plenty people in the band.
Yes.
What are you saying, Keith? You don't feel that there's any justification for the steel band not to be still part of the Monday and Tuesday, because it's almost as if they are the only steel band is only for Panorama?
No, it's not like that really.
No. The emphasis is so much on the Panorama. The energy and thing. I have spoken to about 2 or 3 bands about Rollo Dokomari for you, where they say, boy, the young people say that from November, December, January to February, they're practicing. They really putting out the energy.
Yeah.
And they get a chance to do nothing, you know? So, they want to come out Juve morning and play in the Mudma.
Yeah.
And Tuesday they want to play one of them bands,
Yeah.
the young people.
But
And
they,
then the cost, there's the cost to bring.
Mm.
If you cannot do remember, you're getting no money, you know.
that's right.
Mm.
You're playing for free, and field bands are the ones who play for free for years.
Yes.
People get free music on the road. They get for the last lap. You say last lap. You should come out on Monday night, Tuesday night.
Yeah.
You come back in, you think 7 o'clock, and you
Yeah.
last lap.
Those days,
But
people were pushing pants. The people wherever the band came from, community members.
it was a community thing.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
never said that you playing fan, I playing fan, and my sister, oh man. By the time I give a friend, and they in the band, some pulling the band, pushing the
Oh,
band.
not your wife and your girlfriend in the band.
No. I had them in the front band.
Oh my God, you are making a joke.
You want me to get killed on
Oh
the
my
road?
God.
No, we are quickly running out of time. But for Karen's information, there's a bomb competition that is being held that comes across Park Street there, and I think the judging point is Victoria Square.
Yes.
You know.
I will talk about that briefly.
Yes.
The bomb, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get the kind of music. I mean, when a band finish Carnival Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
putting out all that effort
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
into it, maybe a last very, they put out a lot of effort into the panorama,
Yeah.
financial, they put out physical
And plenty
and
time.
things like that,
Yeah.
mental problems, it is. So many bands is Carnival Sunday evening, they go and they learn a little thing. You don't get these bomb competitions like
As
before.
before,
Real bomb.
no.
So what is a bomb competition? Explain it, because we have listeners from all over the
All
world.
right. We will say that All Stars was the one who really brought out this bomb competition. That was, I'll say 1950s. I think they play Minute in G5. And there were never Jules. They used to go up in the bar, they up in the garret upstairs there. And they will learn to play the tune with their fingers or with a pencil. So they would learn about, this is Neville Jules in his own words in an interview I read in a book. And the band will come out, and it's only when the band warms up that is the first time the band will be hearing the tune. So they normally play about 3 tunes,
Yeah.
and the tune that they were called dropping the bomb on them.
Yeah.
The tune that the people kind of say, yeah, boy, I like that. Minute and G.
Mm-hmm.
And the band will say, we're going to bomb competition with it. And they will go. And they had the bomb competition.
Yeah.
But now, like last year, for Carnival, there's only 5 bands took part in it, so we had to try to bring that out.
Yes.
So they could do the classical music and things like that.
Yes. Yes.
So that's how. But the thing is that, again, you come out Juve morning,
Mm-hmm.
you're fighting up with them DJ, they were playing the people wall and thing with the paint and all kind of thing.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
This is what they think with them DJs coming out on a Juve morning, boy.
Yes.
When they crack that so nice that nobody hears.
You can't hear the steel bands at all.
One Carnival I remember Panchin Bego had gotten the avenue to be the Pan Avenue.
Yes.
So no DJs were allowed to go there.
Right. I think that should be instituted.
Yeah.
Maybe that they should reconsider that, because I don't think we should relegate. I understand what you're saying, and we only have 2 more minutes. So I'll have you say the last word, but I don't think we should relegate Pan to the competition. I understand your point, but even Monday and Tuesday, there should be I know there is a presence, especially the sailor bands and so on. And you play with the best from Belmont. Still, I understand, but I still think that Carnival Monday and Tuesday there should be a greter presence of our musical instrument on those days.
Now, before you answer, Mr. Simpson, we now see bands that will go on trucks because people in neighborhood pushing Pan again. You think is there is there from a Pan Trinbago perspective? I know you into Pan Trinbago executive and all of that. You think there'll be ever an amplification of these bands?
Well, it's just up to the band. I mean, Exodus understand they have amplification. I saw Skipper in a launch last year that Tribe had on the Avenue.
Yeah.
And they were amplified with about 5 pieces of brass.
Oh, great.
but it is costly, to amplify with speakers and mix and this thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's family and sponsor. Yes. How are you going to acquire this? How are you going to acquire all? And punch figure cannot dictate a band to do this and do that. It's up to the band if they have a sponsor to generate enough money. But plenty money to amplify your band. I remember to roll with it. Pan vibes with it. And what's the name? Highlanders.
Yes, Highlanders were the innovators of that, really.
Bali be exalted, right? And people say those songs like Chinese music and all kind of things.
Oh my God.
It's a good idea that if they come out and they have the same loud volume like the DJ and we competed with them, because when they can't have volume, so
problem.
That thing is feeling to your body.
Yes, it's so true.
It's hard for fan to be on the road now.
Yeah.
You have to have relief people to play. You can't go on the road with 25 and people pay for from 10 in the morning. But
we reached the 6 o'clock hour, and it has been a joy. I know having you on. I didn't know if you would have stayed for the whole show. And not only did you stay, I think we could have gone on for another half an hour again. But it has been an absolute pleasure having you. I know David. I have to thank David, because David really is my left and right hand and so many things. And we stayed with the carnival until, Carnival Monday, Tuesday won't be a show. Carnival Monday, there won't be a show. But for next week, we want to go to the Calypso side now. We looked at Mass. This week we look at Pan. And next week we look at Kaiso, Calypso, Soca, and all its variations. And I want to thank you. It's 6:01, so I know I'm getting the signal that it's time to come off the show. So David, thank you. And especially Keith Simpson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I went hunting for your special guest. I went hunting for your special guest, Karen.
And you found him. You're a good hunter.
Through my good friend, Ray Hallman. Sir Ray Hallman.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ray Hallman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Simpson. You'll be seeing much of me, man.
All right.
We had other things to talk about, like people Ray Hallman and the composing his own tune, and
another show for sure.
Yes, we'll put together another show.
But next week we go in and look at Calypso and round it up for Carnival. So we have to say bye-bye to everyone, and thank you everyone for joining us.
I enjoyed the show. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, great. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Simpson.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for today. Of course, I thank Karen Nunez Tesheira, and of course our special guest, Mr. Keith Simpson, who wears a lot of hats, where what I call we music, we culture is concerned. So that's it. Straight ahead, we got news at the top of the hour.
The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.